Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going over 4 players that are going in the middle rounds of 2024 fantasy football drafts that I believe are steals. Now, they aren't necessarily the diamonds in the rough because they're not going late enough to be that, but I still do think there's some hidden gems, Thanos style, inside of the middle rounds of fantasy football drafts with humongous upside. But before we could get into the video, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure they do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into 4 players from the middle rounds of 2024 fantasy football drafts that are steals right now based upon ADP. We begin with my first middle round fantasy football steal, and that is going to be Amari Cooper, wide receiver of the Cleveland Browns, current underdog ADP wide receiver 29 at pick 48.4. Last season in 2023, Amari Cooper finished the season as the wide receiver 20 in PPR and the wide receiver 18 in PPR points per game. Playing in 15 games last season, he had 128 targets, 8.5 per game, ranking 20th. 72 receptions, 4.8 per game, 26th, 1,250 receiving yards, 83.3 per game, number 10, and 5 total touchdowns, 29th at wide receiver. Amari Cooper was an incredibly efficient wide receiver last season for the Browns. He ranked 12th in yards per target, 3rd in yards per reception, 13th in yards per team pass attempt, and 18th in dominator rating. And he put up these amazing numbers all with the 90th ranked target accuracy, 5.9 target accuracy for Amari Cooper. So the ball was getting thrown to him. It was wobbling like some ass at the bada bing. The ball was nowhere near him, and yet he still managed to have a very solid season despite the quarterback play. Now, Amari Cooper is a guy that is far from consistent, right? If you're drafting Amari Cooper and expecting this guy to be a very safe bet game in and game out, then frankly, you just should not draft Amari Cooper, because there are going to be games where Amari Cooper is putting your team on his back, where Amari Cooper might have a game like he had up against the Texans last year, where he drops his nuts in the defense's mouth and has a huge performance, right? A weak winning performance. And then there's going to be other games where he might even have an amazing matchup, right? A matchup that is mouth-watering on paper. You think that Amari Cooper is going to take that defense to pound town, and then Amari Cooper is invisible. He throws on his invisibility cloak. He does the "you can't see me" John Cena, and has a really bad game. And I understand that that might be frustrating for some fantasy football players, but at the end of the day, you're not paying wide receiver 18, wide receiver 20 for Amari Cooper. You are paying the price of wide receiver number 29. Wide receiver 29. I know for sure he is going to finish higher than that. If he figures out a way to be more consistent, if the Browns offense as a whole becomes more consistent, if Deshaun Watson steps up his play, then Amari Cooper has the possibility to be a consistent player. He has all of the skills to be a upper echelon wide receiver at the NFL level. The question is, can the consistency come? Now, if the consistency doesn't come knocking on the door, then guess what? Amari Cooper was still a complete and utter fucking steal as the wide receiver 29. Now, if he does become more consistent, if Deshaun Watson becomes more consistent, then Amari Cooper could end up as a top 12 reliable wide receiver weekly. This is a team that added Jerry Jeudy in the offseason, and to be honest, I think that's not going to really take away any targets from Amari Cooper. If anything, that might help him because the defense might be scared of Jerry Jeudy as well. The Cleveland Browns have a solid offensive setup, so as long as Deshaun Watson isn't absolutely atrocious, I think Amari Cooper is going to pay off in a big way at his current ADP. At number 2, we have Dalton Kincaid, tight end of the No One Circles the Wagons, like the Buffalo Bills. Underdog ADP tight end 4 at pick 49.9. 9. Now, I've been banging the drum for Dalton Kincaid for a while now, and I'm going to continue to do so in today's video. Now, Dawson Knox is still there, and while maybe Dawson Knox vultures a couple of touchdowns by the end of the season, I don't think that will matter. Sure, 1 week it'll be frustrating when you think Dalton Kincaid scored, but it was Dawson Knox one time if you're with me. Sure, it might be a little bit frustrating, but this is a Buffalo Bills team that in terms of a wide receiver core is bare bones. Now, could Keon Coleman become a great player? He's a rookie. I'm not going to just throw in the towel and say that that guy's complete and utter dog shit, right? I'm not going to say that, but he's a rookie, right? They bring in Curtis Samuel. We all know, anyone who's been playing fantasy football knows what Curtis Samuel does. This guy shows up, he'll rip off 2 or 3 great games in a row. And I'm talking about great games, like where he scores 18 plus points, where he really goes off, maybe even scores 20 plus points, right? And then he might do it twice in a row. He might do it 3 times in a row. But then he's like a turtle and he goes back into his shell and then he's invisible for the next like 10 games. Then magically he shows up again, right? Curtis Samuel doesn't worry me at all here, right? I think Dalton Kincaid could end up being the number 1 target at the end of the season. In terms of targets, he could be number 1 on this Buffalo Bills team. Now I'm going to sit here and guarantee that. No, I'm not. But if he just ends up as the number 2 target, you are still going to be very happy with Dalton Kincaid as the tight end 4 at basically pick 50. Last season, he was the tight end 11 in PPR and the tight end 13 in PPR points per game. 16 games played in his rookie campaign with 11 starts. 91 targets, 5.7 per game, number 8. 73 receptions, 4.6 per game, number 7. 673 receiving yards, 42.1 per game, number 10. And just 2 total touchdowns, 27th. Now, the touchdown metric is one of the hardest metrics to kind of predict for fantasy football right now, unless you're a guy like Julio Jones who's allergic to the end zone, or you're someone that just lives in the fucking end zone. It is pretty difficult to predict touchdowns. And while I say it's a little difficult, I'm gonna rub my crystal ball here, like my name was Zoltan, and tell you that 2 total touchdowns seems like that is going to go up this season. He was 1st in target accuracy, 8th in true catch rate. Dalton Kincaid last season, once he took over as the guy there in that tight end room, he was a must-start tight end every single week. And that was with Stefon Diggs on the team. And you know where Stefon Diggs is now? He's in Houston. He's gone. So Dalton Kincaid is in the driver's seat of this Buffalo Bills offense to be either number 1 or number 2 in terms of targets. And I am very excited about that. I think he could easily finish as the tight end numero 1, number 1 at the end of the season. At number 3, we got Jaxon Smith-Njigba, wide receiver of the Seattle Seahawks. Underdog ADP wide receiver 43 at pick 80.1. Now, if you asked me a couple of weeks ago, Nick, would you ever say that Jaxon Smith-Njigba is a guy that you are targeting in a fantasy football draft, in fantasy football drafts, based upon ADP, based upon the situation that he's in? And what I probably would have told you was no. What I probably would have told you is if I did 10 drafts and I got 2 shares of JSN, I'd be fine with that. I wouldn't be overly excited, right? It wouldn't make the blood flow downstairs, right? I wouldn't be super duper excited to draft JSN, but I would draft him because he's a good player and it's okay to draft him in certain different spots. But the more and more I think about it, the more and more I like JSN. Now, last year in his rookie campaign, he crashed and burned, right? A lot of people were excited about JSN. They were excited about the prospect that he was in college. They were excited about the fact that Geno Smith entering into last season, it was like, oh, Geno's back. Maybe he's able to elevate JSN, Lockett, DK Metcalf, and obviously that doesn't end up working. JSN is the wide receiver 47 in PPR and the wide receiver 59 in PPR points per game. You know, when you're tied with guys like Michael Wilson and Tyler Johnson, that you probably had a pretty bad season. 17 games played with 3 starts, 93 targets, 5.5 per game, 41st. 63 receptions, 3.7 per game, number 36, 628 receiving yards, 36.9 per game, 51st, and 4 total touchdowns, 43rd. Now, despite the fact that JSN ranked top 20 in route win rate, he had a 52.7% route win rate, ranking 17th. And despite the fact that this guy was separating at an elite level, 6th in terms of target separation, he was juking the corners off of him. He was saying, get out of here, right? Watch out, buddy. I'm going to run past you. And then he's open. And then Geno Smith or Horsecock, Drew Lock, whatever, it just didn't work. It just did not work. But you saw a couple of games last season where they tried to involve JSN more, right? You know what happened when they tried to involve JSN more? He was really fucking good. He was really good. So my hope at pick 80 is that JSN, knowing how good he is, the team tries to involve him more, right? They get rid of the gum chewer Pete Carroll. They bring in a new head coach, and maybe, just maybe, that is the seismic shift that is needed to bring JSN to the upside that he clearly has. Saw it last season. We saw it in college. We know that Jaxon Smith-Njigba can play. And guess what? You don't have to pay a pretty penny for him. He's coming off the board as the wide receiver 43. He could be the wide receiver 4 on your team, right? He could be chilling on the fucking bench, right? So I like JSN at this price. I believe very heavily in the talent. The team, still a little bit suspect because of Geno Smith, but ultimately I'm going to believe in the talent here and take my shot on JSN because I think if that shot goes in, it's going to be a great shot. It's going to be a half-court shot, a three-pointer, Stephen Curry style. I think JSN has all the skills to play ball. If something was to happen to DK Metcalf, knock on wood, we don't refer injuries, JSN could really be a league winner. Week in, week out, reliable player. I think they're going to look to use JSN a lot more than they used him last season. So I'm very excited to see that. And again, while I might have been off of him a couple of weeks ago, the more I looked into things, the more I just started to realize that I need to take that shot on JSN. If you guys have enjoyed thus far and you are new to the channel, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, make sure you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. So middle round steal. Number 4 is Jonathan Brooks, running back of the Carolina Panthers. Underdog ADP running back 24 at pick 89.1. A quick refresher. The Panthers draft this guy in the second round of the 2024 NFL Draft. The other running backs on the team are Chuba Hubbard, Miles Sanders, and Rashad with 2 A's, Penny. Besides Penny, who could easily not end up making the team, both Hubbard and Sanders were brought in by the previous regime. They were not brought in by Dave Canales, the new head coach of the team. Canales is a guy that has sung praise for Brooks, right? It's like junior soprano singing opera, right? Brooks is a bigger back. He's got range. There is so much he brings to the table in terms of versatility. Then he's also got the vision, the patience, contact, balance, acceleration. He's got all of it. Best back in the class. Canales was on his knees saying that, right? But it's great to hear the praise for the player. They drafted him for a reason, and that is for him to be the lead back. Now, immediately, there are 2 worries for Jonathan Brooks that people will have. For one, he tore his ACL last year in November in college at Texas. So people are like, oh my God, he tore his ACL in November. Is he going to be okay? Every single report that I've read points towards him being okay, right? That he's going to be fine. Okay? Team doesn't draft a running back in the second round coming off of an ACL injury if they don't believe that he'll be able to play this season, right? If they don't believe that the ACL surgery went well. 10 games played last year at Texas, 187 rushes for 1,139 yards, 25 receptions for 286 yards, and 11 total touchdowns. Again, he has to beat out Miles Sanders, who we saw last year, simply doesn't cut it. Simply cannot play ball. He has to beat out Chuba Hubbard, who looked good last season, but I believe Jonathan Brooks can do that. And Rashad Penny at this point is basically a fucking cum rag. No one cares about Rashad Penny. Toss him to the side. So Jonathan Brooks, drafted in the second round of the 2024 NFL Draft, being given the opportunity to be the RB1 on the Panthers. I like it. Now, the other worry, besides the ACL, is that he is on the Carolina Panthers. He is on what might end up being one of the worst teams in the National Football League yet again. Now, this is not the same head coach that was there last season, but we saw on a Panthers team that was bottom of the barrel, was downright atrocious. You would have been better off just watching fucking paint dry or something or watching the grass grow out your window than watching the Carolina Panthers play football. It was that excruciating. Like, they're going to torture people at Guantanamo Bay using the footage of the Carolina Panthers last season. That is how bad they were. So, Jonathan Brooks, doesn't happen week one. It's going to happen quickly. Going to become the lead back on the team. And if they are just slightly better, and I think they're going to commit to the run, I think Jonathan Brooks has the upside to be really good as the running back 24, to be a reliable running back 2 with that running back 1 upside every couple of weeks. And especially if the Panthers are able to stay in the games, even better. Now, if they're getting their back blown out, there's going to be some disappointment games from Jonathan Brooks. But again, he's coming off the board as the running back 24, so that is expected. He does have some solid pass catching ability as well. So I am excited to see what Jonathan Brooks brings to the table. I think he's a guy that might be rising quicker than your cock when you take a Viagra pill. Once we see preseason, once we get some more clips out of OTAs, because once people start to really put together how good Jonathan Brooks is, how healthy he is, then ADP is going to move, right? Everyone gets rookie fever, but it seems like the rookie fever hasn't quite caught up to Jonathan Brooks just yet. But again, by late August, early September, I think his ADP is going to rise. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure you leave a like on today's video to help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. Check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen it already. Love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great one. And as always, good boy.